Alright guys, Smokey here. What we're going to do today is break down the Plexus Sentinel kill on Mythic. I actually did one of these last season with Gallywix towards the end of the tier on one of the reclears, and I thought it was quite useful for myself actually, just to kind of analyze the fight, break down what we're doing at each moment, if there's any area which, as a Devastation Evoker, we can really, utilize or benefit from. It's worth to talk about. It's worth to think about anyway. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I've only killed Plexus Sentinel twice so far with the guild. We've got a couple of 18 logs in there. I'm going to take the most recent one from the start of the week. And yeah, let's look into it. Now, the annoying thing about Plexus Sentinel is I actually think this is a relatively difficult first boss for a raid, especially on Mythic difficulty. Kind of tough. It's a bit of a DPS check, especially when your gear is quite low, making sure that you are having as much uptime as possible. The only really complicated parts of this fight are during the down periods, where we are running from one end to the other, catching up with the boss as we're using our cloak to teleport through the walls. This is, though, a pure single target fight. There is 2 moments during this fight where, actually, sorry, there's 3. There's 3 moments during this fight where you are fighting some ads, but they're not really the main part of the damage here. Yes, you can get a couple of cards off, but it's not where most of your damage is going to come from. I think the main thing to focus on for this boss specifically is, and it's probably what most of the Devastation Evokers are focusing on this tier, is worrying about your single target rotation. Okay, we have a brand new tier set, and making sure that we make the most of that tier set is going to be a huge advantage for us. So let's run through the kill, and I'm going to try and talk through some of the areas that we want to focus on. And listen, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not perfect at my single target rotation yet, but there's definitely some things which I've already picked up on which will be valuable. So to kind of kick things off, just going to run through the opener. This is pretty standard now. I mean, I'm not going to break down absolutely every single cast that's made here. If you want to do that, go and look at a video from someone like Preheat. He breaks down what we're trying to do. But the opener is quite simply an Eternity Surge into Dragon Rage. Once we're there, we cast 2 Living Flames, and that's going to proc the Essence Burst twice for us. Fire Breath, Shattering Star, Double Engulf, and now we're going to smash through as many of these Essence Bombs as we can. If you want to use Living Flame on a Burnout proc, great. If you want to use Azure Strike to grab some more Essence Bombs, do that. Just get through them whilst you have the inner flame buff up as much as possible. And, we're still in Dragon Rage here, so I'm kind of just standing still. Luckily, I wasn't selected to go and drop the puddles on the side, so I can just focus on getting as much off as I possibly can. I only get 1 engulf off here. I probably could have got my second in and just catch that at the end of the Dragon Rage. That's definitely one improvement I would have made. I actually have a pretty I have a pretty good character geared right now, so stats-wise, my haste is pretty high. I can get another Eternity Surge and Fire Breath off at the end of my rotation of Dragon Rage to extend Dragon Rage by a little bit more, so that's always a good thing to have. So yeah, trying to make sure I make the most of that whilst Dragon Rage is up is really useful. By now, the boss is already down to 80%, for example. So again, I got selected for one of those puddles on the left-hand side. I moved it out. If you can pop hover before you do that, you can still get uptime on the boss and cast in some disintegrates. And when we get to the intermission for this fight, careful not to stand under the wires like I do here. You can get maybe, one cooldown off. I used a Fire Breath and an Engulf. That was cool, and and then we moved towards the end. So not much you can really do there. I would recommend having something like Spatial here, so you can cast a move, which is really useful. But what you want to focus on here for your damage specifically is making sure that when your Dragon Rage comes up, which is in about 5 seconds, you are ready to pop all of your cooldowns, right? I've got everything on ready to go here. Apart from Eternity Surge, I'd probably cast that a little bit early. I didn't tip the scales, I probably should have, but I got my double engulfs, and now I'm into the rotation. One thing I do think I could improve on, and I recommend people to do, is if you can, try and pop an Essence Burst before you pop your Dragon Rage, so you don't have to spend the first 2 or 3 seconds grabbing them. I also feel like it's not the end of the world if you don't do that, okay? It is what it is. You're going to get Leaping Flames from your Fire Breath anyway, so don't worry about that too much. Just make sure that when your Dragon Rage comes up, you line up all of your CDs to be available for it, okay? Another thing to note is those soaks. As an evoker, you can jump in both of those soaks. It's really easy to do. I'd highly recommend people doing it. It's really good for the team if you can do so. Yes, it does mean that you're not going to be able to sit there casting Disintegrates, of course. I got Azure Strike talented, and I always put it on my bars so I can quite simply, catch one or two of those as I'm flying. It's kind of handy to catch, but just make sure you hit them. You could be selfish and not go for them. It's not good for the team or for progression at all. So don't do that. So yeah, listen. It's like I said, it's a pretty single target fight. There's not actually too much going on. Just make sure that every single time you have an engulf, you are max ranking your fire breath. That's a fact that will always be true. You want as much damage as you can get from all of it. I will recommend that you stand to the back of this circle, and when you fly back in, you want to land on the outside of the ring. I'm going to just pause it there. This is actually one thing that's annoyed me a little bit. You'll notice that on the outside of this circle, I'm purposely standing on like this lower edge because it knocks us back. And even when I get knocked back in, I'm being very conscious not to jump straight away and to jump late. So I land again in this lower circle, lower part of the circle. If you kind of jump in too far, you'll cross the center line and you might end up getting knocked back into these circles or into these floor puddles on the floor. Both of these you don't want to be doing. So that's like one thing I learned that was actually kind of handy. When you get pushed back for the intermission, though, there's not much you can do. I wouldn't worry too much about damaging these mobs until they're together. For example, you might want to pop one of your engulfs at this moment. I'm actually going to recommend you don't do it, and the reason is because, well, it'll become apparent in a second. The most annoying part of this fight is the fact that the Sentinel's shields do not line up with 2-minute CDs. The first one is like 20 seconds too early. We're now at the shield now. It's coming up, but because I've been using Dragon Rage previously, wherever I'd used it, it meant that sometimes the shield part or the shield burn phase isn't lining up properly with everything that you've got. So just be conscious of that when you're coming into or after the intermissions and you're then trying to come and blast the boss as quick as possible. I think as the fight goes on longer, it gets better and better. So the third intermission actually lines up quite nicely. Like I said here, not much going on. If you can use a spatial at that moment in time, that's really handy for you and a healer. There's a lot of damage that goes out. Obviously, the more damage you guys can output, the quicker that phase lasts. But just remember here, as always, you're typically casting Eternity Surge on cooldown as whenever you want to use it. If you've ever got a Fire Breath and a Engulf ready, make sure you cast that together on max rank. You'll notice here that I had it there, I started to cast it, but because the soak went off, I actually lost a max rank Fire Breath here, right? Ready? I cast one. I wasted it, right? I've got an Engulf sitting there ready to use. Instead of using that on rank 4, I wasted a max rank Fire Breath. That's not good for me here. You'll notice I hovered before I moved into the circle and I can still cast, so I don't really lose too much uptime or on my rotation. And the reason that Fire Breath was wrong is because I've now got another Engulf ready and I'm just sitting on it, right? The 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's like 10 seconds. I could have been saving up a brand new Engulf there that I didn't use, and it's all because I tried catching that Fire Breath a little bit earlier than I didn't need to. So yeah, I've been wasting a few Engulfs here, and that's the difference between 80% pass all the way up to 100, making sure I nail those things. Shattering Star on cooldown unless the Fire Breath is ready. And like I said, you're just sitting there single targeting. I don't think you're going to be topping the details on this fight. I don't think the Evoker single target is anything special. We obviously start off really well and we fade off towards the end. There isn't actually too much manipulation you can do with this fight either. I actually probably missed that second soak there, to be honest with you. Stand there, do your thing. If you need to move, make sure you're hovering. And yeah, just try and line up your Engulfs and your Dragon Rage all at the same time. So again, here we've got 2 manifestations. I put a max rank Fire Breath on them. I cast an Engulf, and then I realized that I've got my Dragon Rage up. What do you want with Dragon Rage? You want double Engulfs. So again, I've used my Engulf. I probably shouldn't have done that. And I'm actually talking to myself in this video saying I should have saved the Engulf. Because now we get to one of the worst parts of the fight. Max damage is coming out, and I need as much damage as possible. And I do not have an Engulf to rely on. So that's where I've made a few mistakes on this boss. But again, same again. Use your spatial. It's really handy for yourself. It's really handy for one of your healers. I see darkness going out. I've got some defenses on myself. Anything I can do to help the raid survive. And we're kind of at the end of the fight now. So you typically go through those 3 intermission phases, followed by what we'd say is quite repeatable soaks, puddles, and knockbacks. There's no real crazy tech you can take with the cloak going through the walls. Just use it at a suitable time. But yeah, just honestly for this fight, I would just go learn a single target rotation, and just focus on nailing that as best you can. All right, so that's it for the Plexus Sentinel kill. Hope that was useful. Like I said, there wasn't actually too much in there, to be honest with you. And some of the rest of the fights in the rest of the fights in the raid are a lot more interesting.